So, but look at this anxiety number. Boy, that's huge. It's bigger than any of them. And you just want to know that if you experience kind of a generalized anxiety or some very, very specific fears and direct avoidance of things, well, you're not alone. It's the most common problem that people are struggling with. From New Life Ministries, this is Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn. I'm Stephen Arterburn. And Going Deeper is all about taking the tough issues, the hard issues of life, looking a little bit deeper inside so that we can gain some insight into our lives. Hi, Steve Arterburn here, and I want to talk to you about mental illness. You hear a lot of things about a lot of stuff. Like if you listen to our New Life Live program, you hear a lot about borderline, bipolar. I mean, it just seems like they create the crises that produce the calls. Hear a lot about sexual addiction, lust, all that. But let me tell you about the prevalence of different things in the area of mental health or mental illness. Borderline personality disorder. Only about 1% of the people ever have that. And some people say, well, it's only 1% of the people have it, and they create 90% of the havoc in another person's life. 3% bipolar, and 4% dual diagnosis, and 1% schizophrenia. And there's been so much done in the area of schizophrenia that many people are functioning quite normally and really being productive, whereas years ago they were kind of relegated to a state mental hospital or something like that. 8% of the folks in the U.S. experience depression, only 1% obsessive compulsive disorder, and 4%, I think this might be very low, 4% post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I'm going to give you some signs, symptoms, warning signs here in a minute, but before I do, if you look at all the adults in America, 21% of all adults are going to experience within a year some kind of mental health problem. And I mean, that just pretty much says it all. 1 in 5 people are going to have a problem. There's some other special groups that experience it more than others, but and certainly if you've got 78% of the men committing suicide, you've got a lot of folks that aren't getting any kind of help. You don't even know they have a problem until they commit the suicide. So us folks that love somebody that seems like they're not doing well, we need to help them. Now the big, huge number that I didn't mention whenever these statistics were put together, 19% anxiety. It's the big one. And a bigger one is, and this isn't really classified as a mental health or a mental illness, but loneliness. Over half of the people in the surveys said that they were lonely. So, but look at this anxiety number. Boy, that's huge. It's bigger than any of them. And you just want to know that if you experience kind of a generalized anxiety or some very, very specific fears and direct avoidance of things, well, you're not alone. It's the most common problem that people are struggling with. Let me give you some indicators or some warning signs that there's a problem. Now, this is pretty obvious. Feeling very sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks. Now, I would say 1 week. You got a pretty big deal happened if it's lasting more than a week, but certainly 2 weeks. And you see somebody like this and you say, come on, get your act together, come on. And that just makes it worse. Because if they could get their act together, they would have pulled it together. And then, of course, trying to harm yourself or ending your life or making plans to do that, of course, that's a sign of a severe problem that needs intervention immediately. So you would want to get that person some help. A sudden, overwhelming fear for no reason, sometimes with a racing heart, physical discomfort, or difficulty breathing. Now, what that's describing is severe anxiety in the form of a panic attack. I've told the story before that before I moved to California, I thought I had it together, but I had never lived out of state, and it must have somehow needed an expression, because I thought I was going to die, and I crawled my way out to the front of my apartment. I flagged down some people, help me, I'm dying, I'm having a heart attack. They took me to the emergency room, and I felt like my life was almost over. The doctor looks at me, and he says, hold on, I'm going to give you an injection of Valium. I said, no, I'm almost close to death, you're just going to put me, and he injects me with Valium. And about 5 seconds later, I started to feel normal. And within a minute, I was back to myself and embarrassed about flagging the couple down. Full-on panic attack. A lot of people have them. Then you get afraid you're going to have one and not be in control, and that makes it worse. But that's a sign something's going on that needs to be discussed or treated. Seeing, hearing, or believing that things aren't real. Most people know that. If you have hallucinations, there's something that is welling up inside of you. And it could be a mentally ill brain, could be some kind of reaction to a drug. You never know until you get the help and get it checked out. Excessive use of alcohol or drugs, which is essentially self-medication. And it doesn't work, because if you get addicted to a drug or alcohol, when you're off of it, the anxiety soars, the pain that you had before is even worse. It's called emotional augmentation. And then drastic changes in mood, behavior, personality, or sleeping habits. And especially when you see somebody in bed all the time, or you see them not sleeping for 3 days in some kind of manic phase, and then they collapse. Those are signs that somebody needs to intervene with that person. Extreme difficulty concentrating and staying still. And so it's not just the ADHD like I have, but it's brought on because there is so much anxiety, so much insecurity inside, you just have to keep moving. And then an increase in worries or fears that can get in the way of daily activities. So you start to not just worry, but you obsess over things. And it becomes the kind of the central focus of your whole life, the problems that are there, and you just can't get beyond it. The more you think about not having those thoughts, the more they're there. But if you get help, all of that can be treated. Don't ignore signs of a mental health problem in yourself or in someone else. If you see it in someone else, take them to get help. Make the appointment, go with them to get help. And if it's you, don't think that the only people that get help are people that have a problem with, some kind of horrible psychiatric diagnosis. No, people that get help may have a mild form of mental illness, whatever it is. If you have that, get some help for it. Thank you. Thank you for joining me for Going Deeper. I hope something I've said may have helped just a little bit. If you have a question you'd like me to answer or comment, just email me at stevesocial@newlife.com. I'll see you next time.
If you want to support Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn, be sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. And if you know someone who would benefit from this episode, be sure to share it with them. See you on the next Going Deeper with Stephen Arterburn from New Life Ministries.